Here are the headlines for the day. The Black Lives Matter movement has been nominated for the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize. CNN is reporting Norwegian Member of Parliament Petter Eide nominated the global movement for their struggle against racism and racially motivated violence. Now, that last part comes directly from what Eide wrote in his official nomination papers. He wrote, Black Lives Matter's calls for systemic change have spread around the world, forcing other countries to grapple with racism within their own societies. The Black Lives Matter protest movement was reactivated in the days after an unarmed George Floyd was killed by police in Minneapolis last May. The movement continues to shine a light on systemic racism and police brutality from America's small towns to its urban centers. The group started with a hashtag in 2012 after Trayvon Martin was shot and killed in Florida. It has grown into a huge social force and has changed the way people talk about police brutality and inequality. The Nobel Peace Prize winner will be chosen in October, with the award ceremony scheduled for December 10th. Also interesting, Stacey Abrams and Jared Kushner have also both been nominated for the Nobel Prize. Ida told ABC News that he's received threats and hateful messages from Americans because he nominated Black Lives Matter. I looked up his Facebook page and I saw some of that hate, some of those attacks. I think it's interesting because there have been 10 fatal police shootings in the UK in the past, I think, 6 years, compared to the hundreds that happen each year in the U.S. So they don't have as big of an issue and are standing in solidarity with Americans, and Americans are pushing back.
Yeah, well, I actually wanted to add on some of the things that the people that were coming against him for nominating BLM, what they said. He said, over the weekend, I received so many negative responses. He said that, people were saying that BLM deliberately used violence as a political communication tool and that nominating BLM for the Nobel Peace Prize was insane. He also said it was very nasty. He didn't want to go in too much, but he said it was very nasty, and some of them were actual threats and very hateful, like you said, Brooke. It makes absolutely no sense.
It doesn't. And if you think about what happened at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, now that was violence. They came with intent to do just that. But I think it's the power of Black Lives Matter, yes, because I'm going to tell you why. Since 2014, they've had a tweet or retweet of over 40 million times because people are making this move. And then the demographic of it, 18 to 34, our young generation understanding the importance of making sure this stands, right? And we have someone to speak for us. So I think it brings fear to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's incredible also that Stacey Abrams was nominated. But Brooke, I'm really interested to find out who nominated Jared Kushner and what exactly is he being nominated the Nobel Peace Prize for?
It was about his work in the Middle East. I can get up the name while you guys are talking, but yeah, it was oddly enough about his work in the Middle East. But I think, remember Trump was nominated at one point, right? He had kind of pushed for a nomination. So a lot of people say that
it kind of trivializes the whole notion of what the Nobel Peace Prize is because of who's been nominated for it. Donald Trump. Okay.
Anybody can get it.
Right.
Exactly. Right.
All right. Well, the city of Seattle has been ordered to pay nearly $82,000 to attorneys for Black Lives Matter to cover their fees and costs in pursuing contempt of court violations against the Seattle Police Department. The Seattle Times reported that the contempt violations were for the improper use of pepper spray and blast balls by police against peaceful protesters after the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis. The amount ordered by U.S. District Judge Richard Jones was much less than the nearly $264,000 in fees and costs sought by lawyers for BLM Seattle and King County after Jones found police had violated his injunction prohibiting unnecessary force. So I was looking this case up, and two things I'm wondering is why the judge didn't order them to pay the full amount incurred by the BLM lawyers, and if this judgment kind of leaves the police force open for more litigious action. And another thing, Jones declined to place coercive sanctions against the city sought by BLM, which would have required SPD officers to provide BLM with use of force reports and other information within the days of every incident, with every officer that was accused of using force against protesters. So this is a really interesting case, but I'm interested to see how it's going to unfold.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe, in other states as well. I mean, if you think about what went on there, and, I did a little more research because I wanted to really understand blast balls, what that was. Because I've seen a lot of that for BLM, but I didn't see that really happening on the other
Capitol?
side. Right, at the Capitol. And so it's known as a flashbang. So when it detonates, it generates a loud noise, bright lights, and it releases a chemical. So, I mean, if you think about that's happening for peaceful protesting.
Right, exactly. And also it's just like another way that taxpaying citizens are the only people who get punished. See, BLM is out protesting for taxpayer citizens, and they're the ones who are going to have to pay for this.
Well, I'm just hoping that we do a follow-up story on this because I'm very interested to know. You know, I like to know the breakdowns. I'm just very interested to know, like, who got what. I mean, $82,000 was it is a lot of money. So I'm just very curious to see, like, did someone get a big amount? Like, someone got I want to get a little follow-up on that and see. That story. Now, moving right along, Michael Thompson, who spent more than 2 decades behind bars for convictions stemming from a marijuana sale, has finally walked out of prison. According to CNN, Thompson was released last week and was greeted by his family and supporters who spent decades fiercely advocating for his release. I was lost after 25 years, he told CNN in an interview on Friday. I was just looking around because I wanted to see whose faces would stand out and who I'd remember. Many have been pushing for Thompson's release for years, including advocacy groups and celebrities like Kim Kardashian, as well as the prosecutor and Michigan's attorney general, who in August called the sentencing unduly harsh. That same month, Thompson tested positive for COVID-19. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer announced in December that she would be granting clemency to Thompson and 3 other people who were all serving time in prison for nonviolent offenses. We have a lot of work to do, but today is a step in the right direction, Whitmer said. Now, I wanted to add, I did just a little bit more digging on this. The crazy part was, of course, it started out as a marijuana sale, but then they searched his house and then they found weapons charges and things like that. Mm-hmm. So he would have been in jail. He wouldn't have been available for parole until 2038. So this is really great that this happened, but also as his time in prison, he spent a lot of time mentoring other men in prison. And so now he wants to be a part of prison reform moving forward. So I know we hear that story a lot, but I just love to hear that he was like mentoring and like being a big brother, because he said in jail they were not treated well at all. So I'm glad that now he wants to help others that are, were in his same position going forward.
True. 25 years, he didn't murder anyone. We're talking about the selling of marijuana, and there he is. And now he can't get that time back. It's not like they're going to cut him a check for this. And you just think about, like, is he really still free? Because he still has to report to his PO. He can't leave the state. So even though he's been released because they realized this was wrong, they still have him on lockdown, even outside the walls.
Right. And, a lot of people don't even realize that, obviously marijuana is still federally illegal, and there is no parole in the federal system. And so if you got life federally over marijuana, there are people right now who will never have a release date unless things change with our laws. While in California, in federal prison in California, serving life without the possibility of parole over marijuana charges when you can walk into a store right out, you know what I mean? Like outside of the prison and buy it now. It's just, so much has to change.
That's true.
All right, Deborah Archer has become the first black person in history to be elected American Civil Liberties Union president. Archer is a professor at New York University School of Law with expertise in civil rights and racial justice. The ACLU has been around 101 years. The ACLU made the announcement today that Archer was elected over the weekend in a virtual meeting of the organization's 69-member board of directors. Now, she succeeds Susan Herman. Herman is a professor at Brooklyn Law School who had served as president since 2008. As the ACLU's 8th president since 1920, Archer will act as chair of its board of the directors, overseeing organizational matters and the setting of civil liberties policies. The fight against racial injustice is expected to be a top priority. The ACLU's day-to-day operations are managed by its executive director, a post currently held by Anthony Romero. I just want to read a quote from Archer. She said, this organization has been part of every important battle for civil liberties during our first century, and we are committed to continuing that legacy as we enter our second, saying, she couldn't be more excited to get to work.
I think about this during Trump's term, it was 413 lawsuits that were filed, right? That they had to file. You think about all the work they had to put in during that time, right? I think they had the right person for the job. Yeah, 413 and other legal actions, too.
Yeah, to protect our voting rights?
Exactly. From voting rights to racial justice, all of that. So you think about the work they had to put in during his term. So I'm hoping that now that she's there in that spot, we can get things aligned right. I know we can.
All right, Romeo with the facts. I love it.